internally we have this joke that we don't need a QA team.
As a non-technical person, I just hear all this noise about agents and how AI is changing everything.
What I think how the software industry would evolve, you don't need a junior developer nowadays.
What was the insight? What made you want to start Qodex, and what does it do?
Qodex.ai is not going to take any decision for you. With the knowledge and information of the product, it will suggest you at each aspect of software development. When Qodex thinks that parallelly while the development is going on, you can reduce that time by 60 or 70%. In my all last 13 years of experience, one thing that has completely been aside was how difficult it was to ship to prod.
And we really do want to be part of multiple founder journeys from zero to IPO.
But with AI, there is a huge scope of automating a lot of quality assistant tasks that you do not need to worry about. So one thing in the AI agent that is remarkably important is the memory and scoping patterns.
Flow, I'm a developer, I've just hit commit. What's actually happening here?
So it's test being handled parallelly while the development's going on. Yeah, we are our first customers, and you won't believe 99% of the companies, they don't know all the API they have exposed.
I'm really looking forward to this conversation with Siddhant, who is the co-founder and CEO of Qodex. He's been a multi-time CTO of some rapidly scaling businesses, and we're going to talk about automated testing in the world of agents. We're going to talk about how a CTO makes the decision on which payment platform to use and Paddle versus Stripe, and we're going to talk about the triple route to market, open source as well as PLG as well as enterprise. It's going to be a great conversation, and I hope you enjoy it. So to start off, tell me a bit about your background and the roles you've held before this business.
So I've been CTO for around 13 years of last 13 years. Built unicorn companies right from scratch. I was zeroth employee at Builder.ai.
Yep.
Built everything from scratch to what $200 million we raised in Series B.
Yep.
And then we started building something in email marketing, which was my last company. We started building nextgen.ai, which got acquired in 2023. And then we have started building Qodex.ai.
So a pretty rich background, some pretty significant companies. What was the insight? What made you want to start Qodex, and what does it do?
So in my all last 13 years of experience, one thing that has completely been aside was how difficult it was to ship to prod. Every time you ship to production, you don't know what bugs are coming, what is breaking in prod, what is not working, which customers are facing issue. So even during the Builder.ai days, we used to build some rule-based engine, which was used to do some kind of automated testing. But AI was not there, so there was not much power. But with AI, there is a huge scope of automating a lot of quality assistant tasks that you do not need to worry about. Like your product manager knows what is supposed to be built. AI would know what is supposed to be working, what is supposed not to be working. So it's very, very easier for AI to understand the qualitative task of a software product, and it's easier to automate that.
So as a non-technical person, I just hear all this noise about agents and how AI is changing everything. What's your uniqueness in that market? What's your unique approach here?
So one thing in the AI agent that is remarkably important is the memory and scoping patterns. So there are so many AI agents working in different aspects of software development. But what happens when your AI agent has the full memory and scope of what it is supposed to deliver, it takes decision faster. So the way we have built it, Qodex.ai is not going to take any decision for you. With the knowledge and information of the product, it will suggest you at each aspect of software development. So let's say you have pushed a feature called, let's say, login or payment checkout. Let's say, for example, Paddle. Let's say Paddle is upgrading their payment infrastructure to payment infrastructure 2.0. Qodex.ai would know what all APIs should work in what fashion, and at the end of the day, whenever it's going to staging or production, Qodex.ai job is just to check whether your payment is getting failed or passed, whether customers are receiving emails or notification or not, whether edge cases, negative scenarios are handled or not.
Okay. So what do you say to engineering leaders who say, well, I can just do this with Cursor or another LLM tool?
So it's a very interesting question. So a lot of people we talk to, mostly engineering leaders, are very curious that why can't they achieve this with Cursor and LLMs directly give their API to LLMs and they will give them the response back. But that's not how it works. It's not LLMs are stateless. They don't know about what's your past and they don't know about what you are going in the future. So if you just do each transaction separately, it's not going to work for you. The way we build API testing or any security testing, we know what all tests you have already written in your company, what all business feature you are going to ship in next week. So it's a complete memory and scope problem, not just a single LLM calls.
So much is about the context.
Yes.
So talk me through a real user flow. I'm a developer. I've just hit commit. What's actually happening here?
So let's say you hit commit. Let's say, for example, let's talk about Paddle. Let's say Paddle is hitting a new API infrastructure for payments for, let's say, directly integrating with their platform. The moment you ship it to prod, or even before shipping it to staging, your product manager would have built a scope, what they are going to expect from the developers. You just fed that to Qodex.ai and Qodex.ai will be ready with what all has to be tested once developers ship the code to staging, not production, staging. Okay. And the moment they hit GitHub commit on staging, they will have access to the whole set of test suites that has to be passed before going to production. So it's a TDD. If you know, TDD is like test driven development. So it's test being handled parallelly while the development's going on.
Fantastic. So that happens in complete parallel. Okay. So with tools like this, I think one of the challenges is explaining to the market the value. So how do you think about the before and after, the change in value that you've delivered? How do you talk to the market?
Completely makes sense. So one of the customers, I would like to talk about one of our customers without naming them, of course. So their customers are Fortune 50 companies. Like this up to Google, Bing, Microsoft, Gemini is their user. So one thing that they were able to, and they are very, very heavily API complex product. They are into data fabrication and it's a very heavily API industry. They were able to achieve what they were doing in 5 days with 4 QA members for one of their microservices. They were able to achieve in 2 days with 1.5 QA. That's like 60% reduction in going from staging to production. Yep. And that's very obvious when we talk to CTOs. See, normally the way company functions right now, developers push it to staging and then QA team thinks about writing tests. Yep. That's the extra time that is utilized in order to move from staging to production. When Codex thinks that parallelly while the development's going on, you can reduce that time by 60 or 70%.
Wow. And so I assume that's going to get better over time. Even, if we go forward, say 5 years, do people even have QA teams? Like, how does this work?
So, I mean, again, in my limited knowledge, what I think how the software industry would evolve, you don't need a junior developer nowadays. No offense to anyone, but you don't need a junior developer. You need good architect, good senior developers, along with coding agents like Cursor, Copilots and all. Similarly, you would not need many QAs or junior QAs or mid-level QA engineers. You would just need a PM and a QA architect, and let's say Codex or other tools like Codex can handle everything that has to be done for QA.
So I love talking to customers who have strong founder market fit, and you really have that, right? You've been in the CTO role at some rapidly scaling companies multiple times. You've experienced this pain yourself, and now you're setting out to solve it. So I love that. And I also love talking to the engineering leaders at our customers because they have a really unique view around focus and about where they want to deploy resource. And so I know you've used Paddle in companies in the past, and you're onboarding into Paddle now with Codex. Talk to me about that decision process. How do you as a CTO think about Paddle versus the other ways you could go and build this stack yourself, and what that means for your focus and your resourcing?
So before I go to Paddle, I would just add one thing. So internally we have this joke that we don't need a QA team. So the moment if anything breaks on our platform, that means Codex didn't work for ourselves. So the first check mark that we has to comply with every time we ship a new version of Qodex is make sure that it tests itself.
Yeah.
So we do not have any QA at all. We have only engineers.
So you're drinking your own champagne.
Yeah, we are our first customers.
Great.
That's what we say, everyone.
Good.
Regarding paddles, so one thing, see, when we started with mid-market play, we started with bigger companies directly. We talk to CTO, they do bank transfer, they don't do payment gateway platforms and all. But recently we have started building self-serve model where anyone can come and directly go on board to Qodex.ai. And they can just pay whatever $20, $40, and they can start testing out their products. Paddle has been super amazing in integrating that. We of course talked between Paddle and Stripe. That's obvious choice. We had been Paddle's customer before as well in my last to last company. So that was a bias toward Paddle. But more importantly, it was very, very easy not to worry about anything at all other than payment integration. So with Stripe, what we faced, and many founders faces, that you have to worry about sales tax, you have to worry about compliance, you have to worry about, okay, if I'm going to sell in this country, is there anything that I need to do extra other than taking out the payment? So all these international payments mess up. You don't need to worry about in Paddle. We just integrated in half a day mostly, and then Qodex tested everything in next half a day, and we were live in 1 day.
Very, very cool. And I often think that the gift we give founders is focus. It's time back, right? For all these things you don't want to spend your time on.
True.
So I love that we're part of that journey, and we really do want to be part of multiple founder journeys from zero to IPO. So I'm hoping you go the whole way with this business.
Definitely.
You've got a massive market to attack.
Yes.
I also find it really interesting that you're already kind of diversifying and making sure you have a prosumer route to market as well as a mid-market.
True, makes sense.
Yeah, talk to me about the benefit of having both of those routes, those different types of customers.
So it was a very strategic decision why we started with mid-market, because I have got this problem firsthand for last 13-14 years. I knew the CTO's mentality. So it was very easier to talk to CTOs and talk about the problem they are facing with QA or QA bottleneck or quality. And till now I have not talked to any CTO who has told me that I'm very happy with my QA team or I'm happy with the product quality and everything. So that's how we started, and we got the initial customers. Then we started doing pilots with a couple of enterprises in US. But once you reach out to a certain level, you also need developers' trust on your platform. It's not CTO who is going to work on your platform every day. It's developer who is going to check the CI/CD builds. It's developer who is going to see which tests are failing and why it's failing. So you need to build that trust, and in order to build that trust, you need to give some part in open source and some part in where someone can come and just try it out. It should not be just going through CTO, going through all the compliance, and then they will be able to try it out. So we wanted to try out that route to build the trust amongst developers community, and I think let's see how it goes.
Fantastic. So a top-down decision as well as a bottoms-up, building trust with those users.
Yeah, and it's a long term. Bottoms-up is going to take a long time. It's not going to be fruitful in a month or two. But eventually, so we also launched an open source version where you can just scan your GitHub repo and it will tell you what all exposed APIs you have. And we had more than 200 companies running this in last 3 weeks. It's just 3 weeks we launched. And you won't believe 99% of the companies, they don't know all the API they have exposed. And this is like 20% APIs. They didn't know that it existed, and we were able to figure that out.
That's fantastic. I love how you're combining all three of those, the free open source mode, the direct to user PLG mode, as well as the enterprise go-to-market.
Let's see how it goes on the bigger picture, but yeah.
Well, we're going to be cheering you on that journey. Thank you so much for sharing it with us.
Thank you so much for having me.